The man who hit hope out of the park. The story of Babe Ruth. It was a crisp October afternoon in 1932, Wrigley Field, Chicago. The whole world was watching. The stands were packed with 50,000 people, screaming so loud the ground shook. The New York Yankees were playing the Chicago Cubs in the World Series, and standing at home plate, thick-set, broad-shouldered, holding a heavy black bat, was George Herman Babe Ruth. The Cubs players were yelling insults at him from the dugout. Fans threw peanuts and paper cups onto the field. He had just struck out in his last at-bat, and the boos were so loud they drowned out everything else. 2 strikes, 1 more miss, and he'd be out. Everyone thought he'd choke. Everyone thought the great Babe Ruth was finished. But Babe Ruth didn't see fear. He saw opportunity. He lifted his bat and slowly pointed it, way out past the infield, past the warning track, deep into the center field bleachers. He was telling them, "I'm going to hit it right there." The crowd went silent. The pitcher threw the ball. Babe swung. Crack! The ball flew through the air, exactly where he pointed, higher and further than anyone could remember, sailing over the fence into the stands. It was a home run, one of the most famous moments in sports history. But that moment almost never happened, because Babe Ruth wasn't born a legend. He was born a boy no one wanted, the boy no one gave a chance. It was 1895, in a rough, crowded neighborhood of Baltimore, Maryland. Babe's parents, George and Kate Ruth, ran a small saloon on the dockside. They worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, just to put food on the table. They had 8 children, but only Babe and his sister Mamie survived past infancy. There was no time for parenting. Babe was left to roam the streets from the time he could walk. He skipped school, stole fruit from market stalls, got into fights, and chewed tobacco before he was even 10 years old. The local police knew him well. They called him Little Troublemaker and said he'd end up in prison before he was 18. By the time he was 7 years old, his parents knew they couldn't control him. They took him to St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys, a home for orphaned and troubled children, and signed papers to leave him there. For all intents and purposes, they gave him up. St. Mary's was a hard place. The boys woke at 5 a.m., worked 10 hours a day in the factory or the fields, followed strict rules, and saw their families almost never. The other boys and even the teachers looked at Babe and saw nothing but a wild, uneducated delinquent. They said he'd never amount to anything, that he was a lost cause. But then he met Brother Matthias. Brother Matthias was a large, gentle monk who ran the school's baseball team. One day he saw 12-year-old Babe throwing a rock at a fence and noticed how strong his arm was. He handed him a baseball glove. "Come play with us," he said. It was the first time anyone had ever given Babe anything, or told him he was good at something. He fell in love with baseball instantly. He ate, slept, and breathed the game. He practiced pitching until his arm ached. He hit balls until his hands were covered in blisters. He ran until his legs burned. Brother Matthias became his father, his teacher, his friend. "You have a gift, George," he'd say. "But talent isn't enough. You have to believe you deserve to use it." By the time Babe was 19, he was so good that a minor league baseball team signed him for $60 a month. He left St. Mary's with nothing but the clothes on his back and a bat Brother Matthias gave him. No one knew his name yet, but they were about to. The star everyone laughed at. In 1914, the Boston Red Sox bought Babe Ruth. He was a pitcher first, and one of the best the game had ever seen. He won 89 games, helped the Red Sox win 3 World Series titles, and became famous. But everyone soon realized his real superpower, hitting. Back then, baseball was a slow, careful game. Players bunted, hit singles, played small ball. No one hit home runs. The record for most home runs in a season was only 27. Babe changed everything. He swung hard. He swung for the fences, and he hit home runs like no one had ever seen. But with success came criticism, lots of it. Sports writers hated him. They said he was too fat, too lazy, too wild. He loved to eat hot dogs and drink soda. He stayed out late. He laughed loud. He didn't act like a proper gentleman athlete. Worst of all, they said, he strikes out too much. It was true. Babe swung so hard so often that he missed more than anyone else. By the middle of his career, he held the record for the most strikeouts in baseball history, a record he kept for almost 40 years. Every time he missed, the crowd booed. Newspapers wrote articles calling him selfish, reckless, a bad example for children. They said he'll never be a great player. Great players don't strike out that much. Even when he was sold to the New York Yankees in 1919, for $100,000, a huge amount of money back then. People said it was the worst trade ever made. The Yankees are wasting their money, they said. Ruth is finished. He's too old, too out of shape, he strikes out too much. He'll never win anything. Babe didn't argue. He just picked up his bat and kept swinging. In his first year with the Yankees, he hit 29 home runs, more than most entire teams hit that season. The next year, he hit 54. The year after that, 59. He was breaking records that people thought would never be broken. He turned baseball from a niche sport into the national pastime of America. Millions of people came to watch him play just to see him hit one out of the park. But the boos and the criticism never stopped, and neither did the failures. Failure is just part of winning. In 1926, Babe Ruth led the Yankees to the World Series. It was the biggest moment of his career. The game was tight, the score was close. In the final inning, with the Yankees down by 1 run, Babe was on first base. He decided to steal second base. It was a risky move. He ran as fast as he could, but the throw came in fast too. He was out. The game was over. The Yankees lost. The whole country turned on him. Newspapers called him the biggest loser in sports. Fans wrote letters saying he was selfish, arrogant, that he didn't care about the team. People said he was done, that he'd never be great again. Babe went home that night, hurt, angry, disappointed. But he didn't quit. He didn't put down his bat. The very next season, 1927, he hit 60 home runs, a single-season record that stood for 34 years. That team became known as the greatest team of all time. When reporters asked him how he bounced back from losing the World Series, he just smiled and said, "So I made a mistake, so I lost. What am I supposed to do, stop playing? You don't stop swinging just because you missed once."
Every strike, every mistake, every loss just brings you closer to the win.
He had a famous way of talking to young players who were scared of failing. A 12-year-old boy once came up to him after a game, shy and nervous, and said, "Mr. Ruth, I love baseball, but I'm scared to bat. What if I strike out? What if everyone laughs at me?" Babe knelt down so he was eye level with the kid and said, "Let me tell you something, kid. I have struck out,